41. The key to my Amish husband's locked door was hidden in his burial coat. The coat was folded on the bed when I found it. Dark wool, heavy, the kind of weight that doesn't come from the cloth alone. I remember the light, thin and gray, coming through the single window the way winter light does, like it's apologizing for arriving at all. The room smelled of cedar, and underneath the cedar, something older. Something I couldn't name. I was alone. I had asked to be alone. My hands moved slowly through each fold. Careful. The way you touch something that cannot be touched again, and then my fingers found it. My name is Sarah, and this is a space for the stories that took years to find words. If you're here because something in that title felt familiar, stay. Subscribe if you want to be here when the next one comes. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been afraid to open something? I'll be reading. It was a small key. Ornate old, the kind made before locks were mass-produced, when each one was shaped by hand for a single purpose. It sat in a narrow inner pocket of his burial coat, the kind of pocket that exists for no practical reason, too small for anything useful. My fingers closed around it before I understood what I was holding. Before my mind had time to form a thought, my body already knew. I stood very still. The cedar smell thickened. Somewhere outside, a horse moved in the barn. I heard the soft knock of its hoof against the stall wall. I set the key on the windowsill. I went back to folding. I didn't go to the drawer right away. I want to explain that. It wasn't numbness. I've been asked that since, and the answer is no. It was something closer to the feeling you have when you're holding a letter that will change something, and you know it will change something, and you are simply not ready to be the person who has read it yet. So I folded the coat, I smoothed the seams. I pressed the wool flat with my palms the way I had been taught to press everything flat. Grief, questions, the small rebellions of the mind. And then I sat in the chair by the window and I looked at that key for a long time. The locked drawer had been in our bedroom for 31 years. It was part of the roll-top desk that had come with him into the marriage. His father's desk, dark oak, worn smooth along the edges from generations of hands. The drawer sat at the bottom left, small, unremarkable, always locked. In the first year of our marriage, I asked about it once. Lightly, the way you ask about something when you're not sure if you're allowed to want the answer. He said it was from before. He said it gently. He wasn't dismissive. He was careful, the way he was careful with most things. I didn't ask again. That was what Gelassenheit looked like inside a marriage, yielding, trusting, letting things be held by God rather than by your own hands. I need to tell you that I loved him. I say that first because I think you need to know it for this story to mean what it means. He was not a cold man. He was not cruel. He woke before 4 every morning without complaint, dressed in the dark, went to the barn, and came back smelling of cold air and animal warmth, and something steady that I came to associate with safety itself. He read to our children on Sunday evenings from the Ausbund, old hymns, slow and unaccompanied, his voice low and sure. He fixed things before I noticed they were broken. He was the kind of quiet that feels chosen rather than withheld. That is who he was. I am certain of that. I am still certain. But the drawer was always locked, and over 31 years, you notice a locked drawer more than you think you will. The first time I remember seeing it again, truly seeing it, not just moving past it, was during a frolic at our house in the 3rd year of marriage. A group of women helping me clean. One of them, old, ran a cloth along the desk and pulled at the drawer by instinct and found it wouldn't open. She looked at me. I said I didn't know where the key was. That was the first time I lied about it. Not because I was hiding something, but because I didn't have a better answer, and the silence already had a shape I didn't want to disturb. Years later, our eldest son, Daniel, he must have been 10 or 11, found the desk while playing and asked me what was inside. I told him it was your father's. He asked what that meant. I said it meant it wasn't ours to open. He accepted that. Children do, in a community built on Gelassenheit. They learn early that some things are held and not examined, that yielding is not the same as not caring. I believed that when I taught it to him, I am less certain now of what I believed and what I had simply stopped questioning. There is a difference between those two things. I didn't understand that difference until recently. The last time I saw my husband near that drawer before his illness, he was sitting at the desk on a Tuesday evening in late November, not writing, not reading, just sitting with one hand resting flat on top of the small locked drawer, the way you rest a hand on something to feel that it's still there. I was in the doorway. He didn't hear me. I stood and watched him for perhaps a full minute, his back to me, perfectly still, hand on the wood. Then I went back to the kitchen and started the washing up. I have thought about that Tuesday evening more than I have thought about almost anything else this past year. What was he carrying in that moment? Was he deciding something? Was he remembering? I did not ask. I do not know. My aunt, my mother's older sister, Sarah, the one we called Aunt Sarah even when we were grown, she had told me something once years before that I had filed away and not touched. We were washing dishes after a church Sunday, the two of us alone in her kitchen, steam rising from the basin. She said, "Every man in this community carries one room no one else enters. You learn to live outside it or you leave." I remember thinking she meant it as comfort, or perhaps as warning. I wasn't sure which. I filed it the way you file things you're not ready to understand. I'm standing at that filing cabinet now. The key is still on the windowsill. The drawer is still across the room, and I am finally, after 31 years, walking toward it. The roll top made a sound I had heard 1,000 times, that particular wooden slide. Dry, familiar, the sound of mornings when he sat there before prayer. My hands were steadier than I expected. The drawer was small. The lock turned with almost no resistance, as if it had been waiting, as if the mechanism itself had grown tired of holding. I pulled it open slowly. Inside there was no money, no photograph of another woman, no document with a stranger's name. There was a bundle of letters, tied with plain cotton string, the kind we used for everything. Perhaps 40 letters, maybe more, written in his hand, addressed to his father who had died 6 months before we married and whom I had never met. I sat down on the floor. I don't remember deciding to sit. My legs simply made the decision without me. The floorboards were cold through my dress. I untied the string carefully. The way you open something you understand is sacred even before you know why. The paper was old at the edges, soft in a way that paper gets when it has been handled and refolded many times. He had read these, not once, many times. The top letter was dated the winter before our wedding. I recognized the year immediately. That winter, I had been told, he had been away for 3 months, visiting a relative in another district. That was the explanation given. That was the explanation I had never thought to question. He had not been visiting a relative. The letters made that clear in the first page. He had left, not the community permanently. He came back, he was baptized, he married me. He lived 31 years inside the Ordnung without a visible seam. But for 3 months, he had lived outside it. He had worked at a hardware store in a town 40 miles away. He had worn English clothes. He had watched television in a rented room and felt he wrote both free and completely lost at the same time. He had written to his father, who was already dying, trying to explain what he was feeling, and his father had died before the letters could be answered. He came home to a funeral, a community that welcomed him back without questions, and a silence that simply sealed itself over everything. I read every letter. Present tense feels right here, even now, because in some part of me I am still sitting on that cold floor. His handwriting was careful and small, the way his voice was careful and small when he spoke about things that mattered. He wrote about doubt, not doubt in God, but doubt in himself, whether he was the man the community saw when they looked at him, whether the certainty they expected him to carry was something he actually felt or something he had learned to perform. He used that word, perform. In plain script, in a letter to his dead father, my husband wrote the word perform, and it landed in me like a stone dropped into still water. I felt the ripple move outward and outward. I am still feeling it. At some point, I noticed the light had changed. The gray afternoon had deepened into early dark. I hadn't lit a lamp. I was sitting in near darkness on the bedroom floor, letters spread around me like fallen leaves, and I was cold, properly cold now, the kind that settles into your bones when you've been still too long. I got up. I lit the lamp on the nightstand. The room came back into itself, the familiar quilt on the bed, the worn rag rug, The curtains I had sewn the second year of our marriage from fabric his mother gave us. Everything the same, everything different. That is the strangest part of a revelation. The room doesn't change. You do, and then you have to live in the same room. He was a good husband. He was also a man who could not tell his wife the truest thing about himself. Both of those things are completely, entirely real. I have turned them over many times now, looking for the place where one cancels the other out, and I cannot find it. The locked drawer was not about me. He was not hiding something from me. He was hiding something with himself, carrying it alone because the Ordnung had no language for a man who doubted and returned and was still quietly uncertain. The community's demand was certainty, public certainty, visible certainty, and so he gave them that, and he locked the rest away, and he lived in both places at once for 3 decades. So did I. I just didn't know I was doing it. I thought of Aunt Sarah then, her husband's locked box given to their son unopened. Whatever is in there belongs to him. I don't need to know who he was. I understood her choice for the first time, truly understood it, not as avoidance, but as a different kind of wisdom. She had made her peace with the shape of her marriage and chosen not to disturb it, even after death. That was real. That was hers. But I understood also, sitting in that lamplight, that I could not have made her choice, not because I am braver, because I have a different relationship with silence. I have spent enough of my life learning not to ask. I needed, at least once, to ask and to receive an answer, even an answer that arrives 31 years late, even an answer that comes through a dead man's unsent letters. It is still an answer. It still counts. I folded the letters back in order. I reteed the cotton string. I put them in my apron pocket against my chest, and I left the drawer open. I don't know why leaving it open mattered. It just did. If you have something in your life that has been locked for a long time, a question you learned not to ask, a room you trained yourself not to look at, a truth you decided was too dangerous to hold, I am not telling you that opening it will be easy. I am not telling you it won't hurt. I am telling you that the key was there. It was always there, and you are allowed to know what it opens. You were always allowed. Some of us just needed someone to say that out loud first, so here I am saying it.